So just make yourself comfortable. I just want to open with something I've been thinking about. And that's making a distinction, especially exploring these qualities of yin, the distinction between meditation and contemplation. And in the limbs of yoga, yoga makes this very clear that there is a distinction. So meditation, I'm not so sure about. You know, I've come to believe in my own practices that the highest function of meditation is just simply relax deeply. Yes. And I know there's many variations on that. So I'll just leave meditation at that. Contemplation, however, is an opportunity that we have in this practice. And I think it's something really to look at closely. So two things that we can contemplate. We can contemplate external objective experiences. So whatever happens to be out in the world, and not even just the world. So the world is one grouping of external experiences. Our thoughts themselves, we can label as external experiences, certainly our sensations. So anything that's an objective experience, we can contemplate that. We can go deeply into its nature. And what contemplation simply is contemplation is just your willingness and your capacity to stay with something for an extended period of time. So to allow the distractions and to allow what you think you know, and to be able to allow your awareness to permeate something in just a non-judgmental way. So if ahead of time you think you know something about what you're contemplating, you just simply haven't looked at it closely enough. So this is the first place we take our contemplations, is to whatever is external, the environment, the thinking process, the mechanism of mind, the sensation of body. And in a general scope of yoga, this would be the tantric approach, to go outward and contemplate. The second thing that we can contemplate is the contemplator. Who is doing this contemplation? So this is drawing the energy back inward. This is the Vedantic approach. This is to just observe, well, who is it that's contemplating the world? Who is it that's contemplating this issue or challenge? Who is it that's contemplating this bodily sensation? Contemplating the contemplator. And again, if we think we know what that is, then we simply haven't looked closely enough. So again, contemplation is our willingness, our capacity to allow our attention to stay with something for an extended period of time without allowing distractions, distortions, judgments, past knowledge to interfere. So this is the invitation of the qualities of yin, of the approach of yin, is to just open up space without having to know ahead of time, and allowing ourselves to gently, it takes very little effort, quietly, in stillness and silence, to open up a contemplation. And now the contemplation of yoga. And let me just say this one thing again, that you can only think you know what something is if you're not looking closely. So that's the invitation of this practice. And it's not either or. It's lovely to give yourself the freedom to go in and out, go back and forth, to notice what's arising in your direct experience, begin to contemplate it in an open-ended, non-judgmental way. And then when you either are drawn to or called to or remember to, begin to contemplate who is it that is doing the contemplation. So we have this sort of, I don't want to really call it a duality, but we have this sort of vast place to bring our ability of contemplation, whether it's in a more tantric way outwardly, or a more inward way, in a more Vedantic way, into the sort of the fabric and the texture of who it is that's doing this observing. So let's come into our position, our first position, and you can use, I just want to have a little bit of padding, and what we're going to do is we're going to go from the pelvis all the way through the back line. So a rather lengthy and extensive backward bending, but always worthy to start in the pelvis. So I have the big bolster and the small bolster. I'm going to show it with the big bolster, but if this feels too compressive, not safe, the pain is distracting, then go to something smaller. Go to something lower, smaller, lower. And if you don't have the bolster, just approximate it. We just want to have some height and something to compress into this area of the body. So I could use, blankets and towels, whatever you have. Yeah, that will do as well. But you know what I would do though? I would fold, yeah, that's about the same height. I would just fold the top blanket so it's going to fit in the pelvic area and not slip into the lower back. So if you're using blankets and towels, just keep that in mind. The bolster then, how I want to place this is just to place the sort of the back of the hip area, the sacral area. So to just put whatever you're using behind you, and then you just have to elevate the hips up a bit and snuggle onto it. And always good to keep the feet on the floor and come to your arms first. This is always a good place to check in, because as you lower the body, upper body weight down and extend the legs, obviously it's going to then you feel more things and be more compressive. So first the upper body comes down, and you may want to make some adjustments and snuggle here, and then let the legs relax out. So I do have a nice arch to my lower spine, but the compression is in the pelvic area, not the lumbar area. If I move my buttocks to the floor, obviously it would move into that lumbar area. So let's just start here. Yeah, so it's such a worthy place to start exploring these sensations that tighten and restrict in the body. So if you're using blankets, you may need to make a few more adjustments. Just again, make sure it's not isolating into the lumbar. We want the buttocks off the floor, and pretty much this should all be under the hip bones, right below the pubic bone, down into the pelvis and the sacral area. And always, give yourself time to really settle in. So we don't just go from placing the body in a position, the posture, and then right to this, contemplation, this investigation. Uh, a lot of the momentum of your day, of your days, of your week, of your life are still moving through your systems. So, using these poses to just settle down a bit, to relax a bit, to arrive into your body, to, certainly not judge uh, the thinking part of the mind, the internal dialogue part, because that's part of it, but that's a very small part of it. What we're really attempting to do is just let everything be, and let your experience be. Internal dialogue is there, physical sensation is there, all sorts of memories are there, maybe little, maybe not so little, triggers are there. And then everything else, the environment and the sounds, and you know what I'm talking about. So give yourself time to settle in, because ultimately we want our yoga to be more of a textural experience, more of a non-verbal experience. So by allowing yourself to settle in and relax and just have that internal dialogue as one small part of your experience, you can then start to move into the more of the totality of your experience. And then you can begin to observe what it is you may want to contemplate. And so again, we're not in a hurry, we're not needing to choose something to contemplate, but ultimately something will come into our range of vision, if you will. We have range of motion will come into our experience that is calling to be contemplated. So take your time, relax, breathe, check in. And at some point in this, especially since this is the first thing we're doing, the compression may come to a point in this pelvic area where you may just want to bring one knee up to the chest and tuck it in a bit, bring the other knee up, bring both knees up, bring the knees up and sway a little bit. So it's just sort of weaving a little bit of passive motion into the stillness and how this compression can build. And again, slowly and consciously moving to allow this to be, more of a textural experience, textural exploration, and we start to minimize, the mind is a lovely mechanism, but it's only a mechanism. It's not really the reality of our being. So we have the opportunity to move into the reality of our beingness. And then we have all of these, processes and body and mind and heart and all these labels. But really, there's a much deeper vibrational essence that we get to sink into. And this is something I was talking about in the last class, I believe, about, coming to this place where we can explore um, this sense of beingness. Yeah. So this sense of beingness is just really the wholeness of how your body is vibrating, let's just say mind, body, organs, cells, all these things we label. At some level, this is a vibrational essence. And what we're able to do, which is so incredibly beautiful, is we're able to see where different maybe aspects of this vibration are out of sync with the whole. So fundamentally, we are whole. And then there may be aspects where we feel, where we can sense, where we can intuit that our vibration is out of sync with this whole. And the yoga and the contemplation is how to just encourage this vibration back into harmony, back into wholeness. And this is just so beautiful because it doesn't need a technique. It doesn't need a story behind it. It doesn't need a goal, doesn't need an agenda. We just relax into this. It's really about opening up a deep felt, genuine sense of intelligent intuition. Good. So if you have not already brought those knees up, let's do that now. So just to kind of wiggle into it a little bit, wiggle, wobble, sway, have some movement. It's nice to do some circles here. Just kind of feel, ultimately we are encouraging suppleness back into not only the pelvis, but also the sacrum. So such a fundamental centering foundation to your spine and your body is this sacral spine area. And this whole area can feel like it's frozen and we don't have an energetic or physical connection to it. Oh, but we do. So we want to work into it slowly and feel it. So that's why after holding statically, it's really good to move it around a little bit, feel what's back there. All these tensions that migrate there, compress there, but also radiate out to the rest of the body. And then let's put the feet back on the floor. And two ways here. You can either elevate the pelvis and slip your bolstering out from under, or you can roll off of it to the side. So wind up on your side in a nice fetal position. We'll just be here for a moment. We're just going to pretend this is one long backward bend that we're going to just keep supporting in different ways. Good. So if you're using the big bolster, if you did use the big bolster, we're going to continue to use it. If you don't have a big bolster, then just create some pillows, blankets for the length of this bolster. So for this, we're going to now go up a little bit from sacral spine to lumbar spine, but I want to have the whole torso, including the head, supported. So you can build yourself some pillows accordingly. Yeah. So very simple now. You want to sit you want to sit just on the floor and tuck whatever you're using is close into the lumbar as you can. Then try not to let it slide as you're coming back. So this is why I recommend to hold it in as close as you can. And just, again, keep your feet on the floor to protect that area and then let the upper body come back over it. So for some of this may still be a little tender and not so sure. If that's the case, at this depth, always feel free to elevate the hips by sitting on something. If this feels like not a lot is happening, not to worry. We want to do this slowly and progressively. So whatever the amount of compression, just make sure you can keep relaxing. Yeah.
But if it's too much, obviously, I mean, this can be substantial, then just bring those hips up as much as you can. So the more I elevate the hips, the less it compresses into that lumbar curve, because I'm taking the curve out for the most part. And then at the very end, relax your legs out. Yeah. Relax your arms to the side. You may want to pull a blanket up on your tummy or put a blanket over you, just so you can feel, very, very comfortable, safe, and just anything to feel you can draw your energy inward.
I know we've all been celebrating the music of Edward Van Halen, but if you have Edward Van Halen playing in the background, you might want to just turn it down or turn it off for this, just so you can really sink into a nice quiet place. But not necessarily, I say that obviously, I say that jokingly, but how you explore, this relationship between your energies, physical energies and mental energies and emotional energies and biological memory is really up to you. This is not an approach to yoga where we're trying to create a certain environment based on sort of an ancient technique that this is yoga and this isn't yoga. What we're doing is we're trying to get to the most basic definition of the Sanskrit yoga that we can, which is no separation. So if things within our, we have emotional energies that feel a bit suppressed or a bit dormant, if we have physical parts of us that feel a bit stagnant, anything that you're drawn to explore these, to investigate these, is definitely worthy. So we're simply exploring, we're simply contemplating this yoga that translates as no separation. Is there anything that you really are separate from? And so can you contemplate, can you move into that and see if there actually is a separation? So it's a very open-ended, and it's a very vast place for us to explore. And the stillness that we encourage, the silence and the stillness, is not meaningful in and of itself. It's meant to give us a container. So this is why I suggest taking your time to settle in. So we want the hands relaxed, with the feet relaxed, the breath calm, losing interest and disengaging from the content of the thoughts. The thoughts are going to be there, but whatever you need to do to just come into this very pristine, quiet, relaxed, still, silent place, and that's your container for exploration. And then whatever it is that is arising to be investigated, look more and more closely. Keep looking. This is the nature of contemplation. Don't stop at a definition. Don't stop at a historical landmark, if you will, of like, oh yeah, I know that's that injury that happened then because of this, and it's no. Go deeper, look more closely, be open to learning. Let each and every movement, each and every nuance be uh, fresh, be new. Explore like you're exploring your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit for the very first time, because indeed you are. Open to the possibility that this quality of deep relaxation is a very potent form of meditation, and also um, a very potent quality of healing, a place that we can relax into, where we let go of our need to have to alter, improve, or fix. We just are, just this isness of our beingness. And we can really allow this, we can allow this right down to our cellular level. that at these, deeper textural levels of our beingness, everything is doing what it needs to do. The information and the connectivity and the intelligence of your processes, of your conditions, are doing what they need to do. We don't have to interfere. We don't have to improve on this, this divine intelligence that is who we are. And, we can simply feel into if this vibrational intelligence happens to be a little out of sync, and then just encourage it and not fix it, but just like open, feel into it. And even these words are limiting. So we drop these labels that are being suggested and go into the very essence and reality of this aliveness and this beingness and this essence that you are. Allow your awareness to simply drop into and feel the pulsation of your heart. And even if you can't feel it directly, you know that it's happening. So allow your awareness to just drop into this part of your body, this muscle that is beating, that is pulsating. And just go right into it. Just feel it. Allow your awareness to drift into it, to saturate it. And then begin very slowly to also weave your breath into this beating of the muscle of the heart. So we're breathing, we're holding an awareness of the heart pulsating. We're just feeling this area of the body, the upper part of the chest. And then see if you can feel the fullness of your breathing, to breathe in deeply for your inhale and breathe completely out for your exhale. And one of the things I would like you to notice here is just try to stay with that. Stay with the fullness of the inhale, the completion of the exhale, and then just notice when the mental energies will come in and bring you away from that. So just do that for a few breaths, but just be aware that those mental energies are going to come in at some point and take you away from this complete cycle of your breathing. And so I just bring your attention to this dynamic, to see that we have these energies of breathing, physical energies of the heart pulsating, the variety of sensations that you're feeling, the feelings, the emotions that you're feeling, and mental energies as well. Not to judge them, not to create any sense of hierarchy, but to see that this is one of the habits of the mind. One of the habits of the mind is to pull you out of current experience. So very, very challenging to stay with the complete cycle of the breath over and over and over, because eventually these mental energies, who knows from where they come, they hijack us away. So this is a dynamic that we get to explore and just to watch it, because the more we can observe it, we can start to contemplate different aspects of it. Some of it certainly works for us, some of it works at the very foundation of our survival, and some of it doesn't work for us. So this relationship between um, the direct experience of yourself, what you're feeling, and then how these mental energies can sort of play with that, and based on just based on our life experience and our habits. Okay, so we're gonna keep moving in this back thing. So let's start to put the feet on the floor and just have again a little movement here. So you can move your knees side to side. It's also nice if you elevate the hips a little bit and move the knees side to side. It sort of creates a bit of sway back down into the sacral area. You may want to extend the arms up over the head and let them dangle and draw up through the mid-spine, up and out through the shoulders. Very nice. And then when you feel prepared, certainly you feel safe, let's again roll off of this. So you can just roll off of this again, come back into the infant pose here, and we'll just curl up, and we're going to continue with our backward bend, but just take a little bit of time here. So just let your body relax in this position, let any movement, unwinding happen. And I think one of the benefits from slowing down, from listening to having a quiet practice, and again, really the container and the qualities of the yin, uh, the qualities and the invitation of the feminine, for the most part, there's always a balance there. But the invitation, when we really quiet down enough, is really from life itself. Life itself. The invitation is to look at, to experience, to feel the texture of the present moment. And this is, it's not a technique, it's not a practice, it's not spiritual. It is just the fabric of life expressing as the moment as it unfolds. So this is one of the beautiful things about putting time aside to just draw everything inward, quiet down, start to feel this, this wisdom of healing that is an aspect of ourselves that has nothing to do with trying to fix or make things better or improve. It's an organic part of ourself, an organic wisdom that is, pulsating and vibrating with, our whole system, all of our systems, all of our processes, and it's very, very beautiful. Okay, so let's come on up then, and we're going to still use this large bolster, unless you're using your pillows and your blanket. And if you are using the pillows and the blanket, this time we want to have the buttocks on the floor, and we want to be able to relax the shoulders over all those pillows and blankets. So the last one, obviously, we were supported. This time we're going to have the weight of the shoulders back. So a couple of things for this with the buttocks on the floor. Again, having some height nearby if you need to elevate the hips and put the hips on it. Yeah. So again, we're not going too deep, so we feel like we're
pushing and pressing and making something happen. The other thing is to have something maybe for your head. So if you don't feel safe with the head dangling too much, then again, fold something up to put under the head. Yeah. The other thing with this height I'm suggesting is if you don't start with it, you may have it nearby. So maybe a couple of minutes in, you may feel like, wow, now I'm ready for it. Good thing I have it there. And you slip it under the hips. And or reverse that, you could start with it and then think, okay, well, my body's inviting me to open up a little bit, and then you can remove it. So use whatever height under the buttocks to sort of support the depth and the compression. Same thing with the head. So we want to be at least, you could be kind of high here since we were just in the lower back, up near the shoulder blades, but we don't want the shoulders on this. Yes, we want the shoulders either draping over your pillows that you've built up here or draping over the large bolster. Good.
And certainly, be open to contemplating pain. So most of you know by now that have been practicing this a while, this practice is not about removing or altering the sensation that we would call pain in the body. It's not about altering or manipulating any sensations. As a matter of fact, we want those sensations. We want to get as close to them as we can in order to contemplate them. And again, what I said earlier, if you think you know something about them, then you're not looking at them closely enough. So as long as you feel safe, yes, as long as you feel like you can tolerate these pulsations of tightness and contraction and density, then this is a beautiful and important place to contemplate, because this is your body's, one of your body's primary ways to asking for attention. And if we can be with this, if we can contemplate this discomfort without judging it or disturbing it, it can take us into a very non-linear, intuitive exploration and wisdom of the body. So allow yourself to just relax, listen, breathe, and have a willingness and an openness to simply contemplate your experience, whether you're contemplating sensations of discomfort or you're contemplating who is it that is contemplating. And any time you like, you can go back to the expansiveness and the subtlety of your breathing. You go back to the complete cycle, however, the inhalation, the fullness of the inhalation, and the completion and the emptiness of the exhalation. And so you just go back to this very naturally, very easily. And then you observe, when is it that those mental energies want to lean into those, want to take you away. And this can be, very, very interesting to observe. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just notice this dynamic. Mental energies, physical energies, the subtle quality of your breathing. So observing our breathing and observing our mental energies, this is the same thing when we begin to contemplate. So with the contemplation, we're simply observing our capacity to be aware of something for an extended period. And the same thing with these habits of mind, with these mental energies, they lean into that. They lean into that contemplation and they draw us to who knows where. So this is also part of the exploration, and to be open, to be open that possibly these physical discomforts, feeling emotionally stuck or contracted, having a distracted mind at a very deep level is nothing more than your vibration being out of sync with a sense of wholeness within yourself. And so we just explore this. And again, not to put labels on this, not to make it a technique, not to make it spiritual, not to make it a practice, but a simple direct observation. Is just to go deep into the flow of your energies and the flow of your life force. So energies, life force, vibration, consciousness, this is all the same thing. These are words, but you can feel this. This is what I was saying earlier. The invitation is from life itself. Good. So let's put your feet on the floor and let's have a little wiggle from this. So two ways here. Well, there's probably more than two ways, but two ways that I usually use, especially since this one tends to, over the amount of time we hold it, is pretty deep.
So once you have your feet flat on the floor, you could just start to shift back. So you come out of the upper through the lower and back onto the pelvis. So this is like safe haven here. So this just helps release it, but you haven't rolled off yet. So you could do that. It is also possible with the buttocks on the floor, if you feel safe, and the feet on the floor, to just roll off of this. Yeah, so your choice. You could even roll side to side a little bit, press the bolstering into your hips. But either way, let's begin to release out of this. And this time, instead of curling up, we can lay flat, and let's take a longer rest here since we've completed a rather lengthy backward bending. Who knew? So just let's let it all shift and pass a bit, and we'll take some time here, and then we will rest. Yeah, earlier I was, contrasting a bit, or just talking about contemplation in relation to meditation, and saying meditation is a little tricky. And I think it has to do with sort of a maturing process, and really getting to know ourselves, and really starting to waken up to a sense of self beyond self-image and ego personality. And I think also in sort of the early stages of meditation, we're using or believing meditation is to create a certain state, yes, a certain state of whatever it might be. But I believe the maturing into meditation is that meditation is freedom from all states. So we're not trying to cultivate anything. We're not trying to elevate our state or use it for any specific purpose, but just no states at all. And just to relax into this, if you will, this pure consciousness, or this pure awareness, our awareness before it gets pulled out and directed into attention, into things, into objective experience. So the distinction that yoga makes is meditation, freedom from all states. Contemplation is a deliberate directing of our awareness into something we want to get closer and closer and closer to. And this is what I was saying earlier, that the invitation really is from life. So when I say maturing, in some ways, I don't believe there's anything we can do to, really encourage or speed this process along of maturing, because life, I believe, gives us what we need when we need it. It's just a matter if we can really put value on our direct experience.
if we can really see that our experiential field is so incredibly intelligent and so wise that everything we need is right there. And not to eliminate anything, not to judge anything, to, sort of, the yoga is to quiet down this right and wrong, this sense of strong duality, and just see that life is presenting us with exactly what we need to unfold this sense of maturity and unfold this sense of maturity. And that's why the relaxation is so powerful, because we cannot force it. We don't need to force it. Why would we want to force it? This is the fabric of our life. This is the fabric of our existence. This is the deepest meaning of our incarnation. And this is what I said earlier. If you think you know about something, if you think you know what it's about, you're not looking close enough. Look closer. Contemplate. Contemplate all of that life presents externally, and then contemplate who it is that's contemplating. It's so simple, and it's so beautiful, and it's so accessible. It's not esoteric. It's not extraordinary. The only thing that's extraordinary is how incredibly ordinary it is, how beautiful the fabric of life is moment to moment. Okay, so let's come on up and let's come forward a bit. Yes, let's come forward a bit. So let's begin our forward bending by extending let's extend the left leg out. It doesn't make any difference. I don't know. I have to take a moment to decide. I guess I have to do something up here, huh? So we'll extend the left leg out and we'll bring the right leg in. So the sole of the right foot is somewhere along the inside of this left leg. Yeah. So anywhere will do. It just depends on, keeping the hips loose and open, not tightening anything up, not having an idea of alignment. Let go of all ideas of alignment and feel your own individual skeletal variation. Start to come forward from a nice, soft, gentle, unengaging the muscle in the lower back. Have some bolsters or whatever you need to make sure you're not going to come too deep. Really take your time. We have the time here, so you don't want to set yourself in a position where you've missed some threads of tightness. If you don't need the bolsters, you can come to the forearms and just really relax and soften and find a good spot that you can just, really settle into stillness. And again, the invitation to stillness is not based on some getting it right or has any special meaning, but it allows you to explore much more subtly, much more nuanced. So the stillness, the silence is really the container. So let the fingers relax, let the arms relax. Make sure the head is comfortable, the neck is comfortable. And just settle. Just see if you can settle. No need to scratch, no need to wiggle, no need to adjust away from discomfort. And then if, along the course of the pose, you need a valid adjustment and your body is requesting an adjustment, that's a different story. If you ever feel unsafe with the intensity or the pain, that's another story. But for the most part, just settle into it, become very still, very quiet. And this way, whatever arises, you can then bring your awareness into a contemplation of it. Usually the little wiggling, the need to scratch, the need to fix, is just a movement away from this discomfort, a movement away from our deeper willingness to contemplate this vibratory essence of our body. And stillness and silence. This is the same thing as relaxation, calming your breath and breathing gently and deeply. This is the same thing as patience. Contemplating the contemplator. This is the same thing as being aware of being aware.
Good. So let's come on up from here, if you will.
And let's keep that left leg extended, but take the right leg, the one you had in, and just open it up and bring it around in back of you with the knee open. Now, so I'm not bringing the knees together here. I'm just opening it out only until you feel a bit of pulling, external rotation on this right hip. So don't force it, because the more you torque the hips, the possibility you're going to lean over to the left here. If that's the case, put some bolstering on the left side. We want to come forward here, or hopefully towards the center a bit. But if the hips are really torqued, lean on the left. So have something that you can do a forward bend here, left. If you're not so much leaning to the left, but it still feels awkward, you can support yourself with the bolstering on the right side of the left leg.
or if you're feeling pretty good in these hips, you can just come to the forearms, again, more towards the center, but you can find a place. So you sway this upper body weight, you're going to feel that in the extended leg and the hips and the pelvis here. So this can initially be a very awkward pose, but once these things start to loosen a bit, it just feels so lovely. So just find a place. Again, try not to stretch out the lower back, really soften into whatever you're feeling back there, especially when the hips are torqued this way.
Very important not to begin to struggle. More than anything, we're trying to explore a sense of openness. So there's a nice vague word for us, yeah? So, but what does that feel? What does it feel to, even within the constraint of the posture, find a way to relax and feel more openness? If the mind is judging this posture or judging the time or whatever the discomfort, let that open as well. Let your energies open. And we can feel this. This is the nature of our vibration. This is not esoteric. When we start to explore ourselves vibrationally, we can feel when we contract and we can feel when we open. And same thing with the breath. The breath can contract, it can constrict, it can get caught up in parts of the body, or it can be like, flow and be open.
Good. So let's come on up from here. And very simply, let's just keep this left leg out and we'll bring this back leg back just where it was. But I don't mean it has to be in the exact same place. You could bring it up a little higher. You could open it a little bit, really explore how the right hip is doing. But we'll do the same position. So the left leg stays extended and we're going to repeat what we just did with that little of the interlude. So again, coming forward with a nice rounded lower back, not extended or what we might call stretching, but softening. And we'll come back into the forward bend. Support the head or relax the neck. So the thing we don't want to do is we don't want to hold the head up because we've got whatever's going on in the upper shoulders and the neck. We want that to feel supported. So if it doesn't feel safe or the tightness is drawing down the back line, you can always rest the head on something, bolster or pillows, or if you're able to just fully relax it so you can explore what's being held there.
certainly one of the things that is, very worthy and open to this idea of contemplation are our emotions. So one of the distinctions that we make in yoga is distinguishing a pure sensation from an emotion. So the sensation is neutral. The sensation is just appearing as it is. And then what that evokes in us would be our emotional state. But even with that, it's very good to make a refinement in that the emotions of the ego, egoic emotions, tend to be very limited. They tend to usually have a very conditioned sort of mental overlay. They have a very conditioned story that goes with them. So these are the ego emotions. Our somatic emotions are much, much more open-ended, really without boundaries. The story is loose around the edges and vague. And so we want to contemplate this. Yes, we don't want to change anything, but to see the power of our conditioning, the power of our programming to go from a simple, pure, neutral sensation. And at this point, we're not even calling it discomfort. We're just talking about the vibration of a sensation that appears. And then the strength and the power of the ego emotion to draw it into a predetermined storyline, and also our creative ability to contemplate the emotion somatically, to loosen up the boundaries and the conditionings and just feel it, just let it pass through you. It's almost like, in a way, at least for me, it's almost like when I feel emotional listening to music. So I don't have to pinpoint each lyric or each note or each melody and how that makes me feel and what the story is. It just passes through me. It just goes in and out and around, and it's a vibration of music and somatic emotion. And we can cultivate this and feel this. We can loosen up these the contraction of ego emotion and start to blend them more into just a somatic emotion without boundaries, without limits even, and just to increase our capacity to feel emotionally. And this is just the power of our somatic intelligence. This is the invitation that the discomfort, the vibration is really inviting us to explore, go deep, feel, be open to learning.
Good. So let's come on up from here.
And let's take a rest. We're going to do the other side, but I think a rest would be warranted here. And if because of all that backward bending, I'm going to suggest that when you lie down to rest, that you just put your legs up on something. So it'll just let the hips relax a lot more than if they're pulling down with the weight of the legs. So if you would like, just put something under the legs to elevate the femurs. And let's just come into a Shavasana for a while, because that was a pretty lengthy forward bend, if I must say so myself. And then we'll relax for a while here before we do the other side. possibly another way to talk about this idea of contemplation is, can you slow down into whatever it is? So instead of being reactive, instead of having to react what arises, can you have some space? Can you slow down enough to, at some point, just intelligently respond or not? So it's more the slowing down and the feeling into something. And this in itself is a form of contemplation. And I think part of the, the foundation of this is really starting to see, and, part of, I was saying earlier about maturing is really being, not only okay with not knowing, but really celebrating not knowing as a beautiful part of life, that the complexity is just so mysterious. The unfolding is so mysterious, and to really be okay with that, to see that reality doesn't really have a model. The symbols and the maps are not the territory. And so part of that, we have to loosen up this need to know, this certainty, and be okay with uncertainty and this, just tremendous mystery, this tremendous complexity, and just to let that be. And then it becomes very personal, the contemplation of oneself as a contemplator, the contemplation of one's experience. It is, the closer we get to it, the more it just really is texture and fabric and energy and movement, information, vibration. These labels are just the surface, but when we get into the reality of it, not so easy to describe. I guess that's why we have ultimately poetry and music and art and different levels of creativity. Or just walking, I don't know, last week, I think it was, just walking into the forest and looking at the abundance of and the variety of mushrooms. It's just mysterious, the understanding of this interconnection below the surface, this mycelium network that's mimicking the fascia of the body, and how incredibly complex and alive, and it's just so beautiful. So we are certainly part of the big picture, I would hope, or maybe we are the big picture. Okay, so let's come on up and let's put that right leg out this time. So just doing the other side of this. So the right leg is out, the left leg is going to come in somewhere. And the only thing I really emphasize, this is the thing, when I used to see people, there used to be a tendency to stretch, thinking we're stretching, trying to elongate these intrinsic muscles of the lower back. Some practices, yes. This practice, no. This is to relax. So I'm trying to relax the entire spine and then engage the weight of my head and just sink down into it. So where it starts to tug, where we start to feel the resistance, this is where we start to explore. We're not concerned with what the pose looks like or how deep we go. So find that position where you can really settle in, place the hands, settle the fingers, the arms, and allow yourself to just simply be still. It's a relatively short amount of time. I know sometimes it seems like an endless amount of time, but This mycelium network of the mushrooms is, you might say, a purity of information. And this is analogous in your body to the myofascial system. It's just pure information. And I'm not talking about conceptual information or knowledge or the intellect. I'm talking about the information of your kidneys, the information of your bones, the information of your heart pulsating, the information of your digestive system. This is very, very primal. This is life itself expressing through information, appearing as you. This is life itself expressing through information as you. And this is part of what we're learning. This is the contemplation. We're learning to listen intuitively to this information. Yes, certainly honor the intellect and honor the knowledge. It's one mechanism that we have, but we also have the capacity to merge with this this more comprehensive information system that is overlapping in all the systems, all your processes. So this is the somatic expression, the somatic emotions, the somatic intelligence.
Good. So let us come on up from here, please. Yes.
And now I'll take that left leg and we'll scoop it around back. And again, just a nice little tugging on this left hip. Don't force it. A little bit of leaning to the right, possibly. Put some bolstering there to lean on and to allow yourself to forward bend. You could put on the inside of the leg or you could do without it. So it's nice to have, though, just to sort of come in and out if you need to, because especially the extended leg with this, I won't go into the mechanics of the anatomy of why when we're torquing the hips, it's addressing an interesting and deeper part of the hamstring that we don't usually address in a forward fold, but you might be able to feel it. It does. So you may want the support even for that, not so much for the hips, but yes, for the hips, but for this extended leg, because you're in, for most of us, if you don't do this regularly in that hamstring area, you're in some interesting territory. Let's just put it that way. And relax. And feel. And very simply, with no complication, contemplate the nature of yourself. Your heart is vibrating. Your brain is filled with light. Your cells and your tissues, your bones and your joints are breathing. And when I say your brain is filled with light, I do not mean that metaphorically. It is an amazing light show. All of these images that we think are outside of us, the stars and the sun and the moon, and the trees and the birds and the water, this is nothing but a light show. A light show in your brain.
Good. So let's come on up from here. And same thing. Let's leave that right leg out and extended. And if indeed you can scoop this back leg around, we'll put it pretty much where it was. And we'll continue the forward bend.
So again, soft lower back, settle to a position where you can settle into stillness.
And again, allowing your exploration to be textural, exploring the fabric and the texture of the sensation directly. So if you find that the dialogue is dominating, then just let that relax. And just appreciate that you have a tremendous space for this non-verbal energy. Yes, we have the verbal energy, we have the imagery of the thoughts themselves that come and go, but we also have a great capacity to relax that, to slow that down, to find space there. So this is just an awareness of what is our capacity to explore ourselves without the continual overlay, the continual superimposing of story and conditioning. It's very interesting just to be interested in, you have this capacity. No need to have an outcome. Don't make it into a technique. It's an observation of yourself at the level of this awareness. Again, being aware that you're aware, and then how you creatively express that awareness into your exploration, that's up to you. Okay, so let's come on up from here, please. And let's take another rest. So just lie down and make yourself comfortable, and we will take another rest. And it seems like it's a little tricky, what I was saying that certainly applies to me communicating to you, but also you communicating to yourself, is that all of this language is always just pointing to something that cannot be described by the language. So we don't want to, we don't want to stop at the label. We don't want to stop at the language. We don't want to get caught up in all of these semantics and concepts. I mean, they're fun and they're nice, and we get to play with them. It's a lovely part of being human. But when we really want to go deeper into this essential part of ourselves, and I don't mean essential and superior, I mean, what is it? Who is the one questioning? Who is the one observing? Who is the one contemplating? Then the language can only point. And so we want to, feel safe with this, and we want to relax with this, and we don't want to complicate this. We don't want to turn it into a religion, if you will. What we want to be able to do is let go of that boundary that the language creates, and then drift into, contemplate into, lean into, relax into this boundaryless place, this open field of just pure awareness. Okay, so we have some time to do this next thing, which I really want to do. And I'm going to start setting it up. But I also, after this rest, if you need to go to the bathroom even a little bit, it would be best to go to the bathroom now, because this is going to press on some organs that might not appreciate if the pressure if you have to go to the bathroom. So go ahead and do that. And I'll just take my time setting this up, and then I'll go over it a second time for those of you that come back. So what I'm going to suggest is two things. And if you don't have one of these small bolsters, then just use 2 blankets, you know, and just fold 1 blanket and fold the blanket. So what you would do is, if you're using 2 blankets, is the first one you would fold to sort of replicate this small bolster. Yeah, so I would do that. Yeah, so you can either use the small bolster or a folded blanket, and I'll just use the folded blanket. Then take a second blanket, or actually I have a towel, doesn't really matter, but we're going to make a roll from it. So so one is folded and the other one is rolled, and just a nice tight roll. The tighter the roll, the better. And it doesn't have to be, this will be perfect, really. So this is a nice tight colorful roll. Okay, good. So we have something, so we have this height and we want this roll here. And what we're going to do, and you'll see why I suggested they go use the bathroom first, is we're going to press the sort of right where the pubic bone is on top of this. So we're going to come onto the belly area, but don't put the lower belly on this. Put basically, yeah, the pubic bone is fine here. So hip to hip. So where your hips are, right over this. And then come to your forearms first. So what I'm going to suggest, and I'd like you to do this at your own pace, so I don't have everybody going in and out on my timing, is to come to your forearms and just let your belly relax. And then after a while, come off the forearms and let your chest come to the floor and just soften into this. So again, this should be pressing up into the pubic bone, hip to hip on either side. And this is also at this hip point is meant to press into the psoas muscle. So this is a really nice psoas release if you can feel this. So if this is not enough, you could always make your roll up a little bit more. And then you can come back up to your forearms when you're ready. A few times I actually would come up to my palms and really go into a deep backward bend, and this will kind of stretch. Again, it's creating more pressure into the psoas, this top of the hip area. So I just would like you to play with this. Have some moments of stillness when you're on your forearms. Have some moments of stillness when you're bringing your belly down, your chest down. And then you can also press up into it. So we'll stay here for some time so you can just sort of explore with this. And if you're just coming back from your bathroom break, I basically either invited you to use the smaller bolster with a roll on top of it, or a folded blanket with a roll on top of it. The roll is nice, so it has a little bit of tightness to it. If it was just padded like this, it would just kind of mush into this area. We want a little bit of specificity. Yeah, and just kind of play with it a bit, but do have some movement, have some stillness. It's almost kind of sort of massaging into this sort of the psoas muscle comes off the lumbar, wraps around the front of the hips, and then attaches up into the top of the femur. So I think it's the biggest muscle in the body. It's pretty big. But this affects, not only lumbar, sacral, pelvic area, but hips and the attachment of upper and lower body. So the more you can really just press in there, it's a lovely thing to do. And if you're not used to applying pressure here, obviously be cautious. But again, don't shy away from the discomfort, because the discomfort is there to invite you to pay more attention, invite you to to explore and to investigate. And and this also goes for in sort of our psycho-emotional states. We can really alleviate all of our suffering, if any of us are suffering, when we start to see that the discomforts of life, the challenges of life, what we think isn't working is merely life's way of asking us to pay attention because there's a lesson there. And if we can relax and we can listen to the lesson and start to unwind it and play with it as a puzzle, then we're no longer suffering. We're no longer contracting and superimposing fear on physical, psychological, or emotional discomfort. So there's no more suffering. We're seeing it as the way that life has to get our attention to teach us something valuable. So it's beautiful because it doesn't mean there's no longer going to be pain and discomfort. There's just no longer going to be suffering. So how beautiful is that? And again, we can contemplate this. We don't have to take this as a technique or practice or something spiritual. We just contemplate. We slow down enough, we relax enough, we trust life enough to start to contemplate discomforts and challenges as they arise and see, is there something to learn? Can I lean into this and start to understand that the wisdom of life and the wisdom of myself is really the same wisdom. So just a little bit more to play with this. And then please, at this point, feel free to stay. If this is interesting for you, you can continue to work in this area. Sometimes it's nice just to turn over. We started in the pelvic area. We're going to end, but I'm just inviting you to extend your exploration. So if you'd like to just flip over and put this in the back of the pelvis, you could. You can roll off and come into a restful position. You could take any counter position that you feel you need at this point. You could just come into Shavasana, or you could sit up with me and we'll take a few moments and close our most lovely yin yoga practice. Let us laugh more. Let us love more. Let us not be afraid. Namaste.